Hello everyone and welcome back to the Perkins Engineering YouTube channel. This is episode number 58 and I'm delighted we're back in the workshop and we've been pretty busy over the last period working on a few different projects and whatnot. Before we get stuck into it, look at this, the retro Perkins Motorsport logo is back. We've got retro trucker caps from 1990, t-shirts, and by popular demand, we've got polo shirts. So, you want to wear Perkins Motorsport shirts on the golf course? We have a white polo shirt as well. Jump on the website, perkinsmotorsport.com.au to get your retro gear. Limited numbers, so get in quick. Big PE on the back. Really cool t-shirt. So, not the right colour to be wearing in the workshop, I'll be honest, but obviously the white stuff's what we ran back then. So, really excited to have that now in stock and on the store. Lots of feedback from when we put it up initially the other night. A few people give me a bit of feedback on what they think of my white boots. These are just King G work boots. They are quite light. They're not white, but they're not something that I wear at the pub. They're my work boots, but thanks for the feedback. Now, let's get stuck into it. So we've been pretty busy. This car, for those of you that follow us closely, will know we had this at the AAE Expo, the Australian Aftermarket Auto Expo at the Melbourne Exhibition Building in the city of Melbourne. It was on display with our good friends at Unifilter, and we've got a lot of feedback, photos and everything about its presence at the show. So really cool, not only to have it there with Unifilter, but to get a lot of feedback from people that saw it there. Just want to point out the car's not finished. We sort of made it look pretty close. We have fired the engine up, we've finished a lot of the wiring, but we've got a lot of little jobs to do, throttle cables, setting up the clutch, brake, that sort of stuff, and then we'll have a proper video when we run it up, just doing a couple of little things in and around the trumpets area. So I've just pulled all the filters off and all that sort of stuff. So a few other odd jobs, some bracketry and things to come, finish off the radiator ducts, but we'll document those in other YouTube episodes as we not only finish the project, but look forward to having this car out on track. So this episode, what are we up to? Well, I'm actually going to run up the engine in the HRT WR020 Walkinshaw chassis. 3 years ago now, I think it was, we did a similar video running up the 2003 Perkins car, the VY, and that video, just running up the engine, is up to around about 60,000 views, so it's obviously pretty popular. And what we documented in that video was the fact that these cars aren't really designed to sit around. You don't want to sort of run them to within an inch of their life every day and every week and every month. But what we try and do is keep the batteries charged, keep the fluids up, and run the engines every 3 or 4 months just to run them through a cycle, put some fresh fuel through them, keep the injectors lubed, keep the engine lubed, all that sort of stuff. And we documented that quite closely in that previous video, episode 9 I think it was, for those that missed it, episode 9. So in this episode, give you a quick rundown on what we've got to do to the car to get it ready to run up. So we'll get stuck into that pretty quickly, but a lot of people ask about this car. If you've got an event, a hill climb, a race meeting, an historic race meeting, a show, something that you'd like this car to go to, reach out to me. I'd love to have it on display wherever we can. It's just sitting around here in a workshop now that it's been back at Walkinshaws. They loaned the gearbox off me last year for their Super 2 team, and now it's basically ready to go. It's all set up, ready to hit the track. You know, we can do whatever. So reach out to us if you think this car would be good at your event. Now, let's get stuck into running the engine up. I've already got the bonnet up. It's a pretty cool car, this one actually. It's one of the few mobile HRT cars that has a Castrol sticker on it, and it also runs a few Castrol fluids. We've got Castrol brake fluid and Castrol engine oil in there as well. So let's get stuck straight into it. Let's check out some of those fluids, get some temperature into it, and kick it into life. All right, one of the first jobs to do is rip off the airbox lid here so we can have a look at the trumpets. Normally the trumpets have got a nice billet aluminium cover on them, but I know they're not on there at the moment because the engine was ran up at Walkinshaws and we've had the airbox lid on. The covers normally go on the trumpets when you're working around the engine bay, but when you're running up the engine, we'll leave them off. So first things first, we pull out the air temperature sensor here. which comes out of the airbox lid. So all the ECUs have an air temperature sensor so that they can calculate obviously the fuel going in. And then these ratchet cam locks, I think that's what they're called. There's a few of them on the car holding it all together. So we'll get them off and whip the airbox off now. All right, now the airbox is off. You can see one air filter got stuck behind. Take that off and we can see easy access to the throttle cable. See none of the trumpets and inlets, got no debris or anything there. Under the bonnet here you'll find our oil tank and header tank for the Walkinshaw car. So an aluminium fabricated oil tank sits right in here. It's got a dash cap on here, and we've already checked with a dipstick our oil level, which is fine. And this sort of acts as a header tank for the water system. There's a fitting on the top here. We've checked our water. So we're basically ready to start taking some temperature out of it. This car has a pretty cool little plug here. It's got a heater in the oil tank, just a computer power plug. And we'll plug that in there and plug the point into the power point, and our oil system will start heating up. I'll give that 10 or 15 minutes to warm up the oil in the engine. Just disconnected the battery charger to plug that in, so our battery's nice and tight. All our fluids are done. We've put some fuel in the car, and we'll make sure our air temperature sensors not in the way of any fan belts when we run it up. And we'll get oil pressure up on the starter motor and kick it into life. Okay, here we are in the cabin of WR020. The dash is quite bright, but this is the page you'll commonly see as a driver. So neutral for gear position, fuel used per lap, front and rear anti-roll bar settings, brake bias, and then lap time. The green one will either be green or red versus your reference lap, so it'll show you if you're faster or slower than a reference lap. And then -2 is actually where we start the lap counter, because when you do a warm-up lap and a race start, it then clicks over to 0 and it counts up, so that if all comms fail, you know how many laps are in the race. But the purpose of being in here is actually to change pages and put what we call the mechanics page up. And this is not a page you'll use whilst driving on the racetrack, but you'll see this has got all the vital information now to run the engine up. So again, the gear indicator's still here, RPM is listed here, battery volts. I'm not actually sure on the amperage. It must be power being used or something similar. This could be the steering potentiometer. Yep. Throttle percentage, which generally, no, that does work without the ignition on. And then you've got engine temperature, oil pressure, steering temperature, I'm going to say, fuel pressure, and potentially gearbox pressure. Should probably know these ones, but I haven't been a mechanic on this car for that long, if I'm honest. And then the lambdas, you'll see LAM, LH there. Shows you the lambda sensors on either side of the engine. So the lambda sensors are basically under my feet, where the exhaust header pipes all match up and start to go into one exhaust system. So from here, we will crank it over and get some oil pressure. Okay, quite strong oil pressure. You can see the battery volts starting to dip after cranking on the starter motor, but we're ready to fire it up. One quick one before firing up is a fuel pressure check. So we crank up the fuel pumps, and we've got good fuel pressure there. And from there we are ready to fire it up. So that's the run up. It's pretty important to keep doing that. Give it a bit of a rev at the end when it's got the temperatures up. And I always record the temperature of the water and the oil. So I warmed that up to 70 degrees and the oil got to 53. So I mentioned that in the last video. I think I do that from a trend monitoring point of view, because say next time if I start it up, warm it up to 70 and the oil temperature's at 80, there's going to be an issue developing there. So it's just good to keep records of all that sort of stuff. Whilst we run it up, we'll walk around the car, check a lot of the fuel lines and everything. Always important to look under the car just to make sure nothing's leaking, nothing's falling on the ground, and just generally a good overview. Touch a few fittings and connections and things, make sure everything's running good. I also chuck the temperature gun on occasionally on the header pipes to make sure we're running on all 8 cylinders, but you can tell this car that the engine's so crisp, it runs so good, so there's no issues there. And that's sort of how you preserve these engines and keep running them, keep them in life, and hopefully keep on top of various aspects. Sometimes it's called preventative maintenance. So that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Remember our Perkins Motorsport merchandise online, getting quick before that stuff goes. And we look forward to bringing you more and more stuff in the future. Got some exciting things in the pipeline, and looking forward to showing you how we finish off PE 019. That's been an exciting project. So thanks again for your support, everyone. Much appreciated.